How are you guys doing? Welcome back to the Play by Play Podcast YouTube channel. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video. I want to thank you guys so much for your recent support on the podcast. We are on the road right now to 200 subscribers, and we just got, I believe, our fifth total 1,000 viewed video. You guys have been absolutely smashing. And as you can see, we have another new background. Once again, yes, that is right. I am back at school in college here in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And so now my hopes and my excitement is that in the future, we're going to be rolling out even more content for you guys now that I am back at school. But before we get in today's topic, that being my Denver Broncos, I want to encourage you guys to go down below, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we are on the road to 200 subscribers. Leave a like on this video, as well as leave all of your comments and opinions and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those ads are going to be down below in the description. We're on all of those social medias. You will get to see my latest reactions to breaking news within the NBA, the NFL, and combat sports. And you will also never miss for whenever the podcast decides to upload an episode. There is really no downside to it. And without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and end the longest intro of all time and focus back on today's topic, that being my Denver Broncos. And normally, I'd be sitting up here and talking about my Broncos. I would be super excited. I'd be yelling and whatnot, and I'd be a lot more happier than I am today. But unfortunately, at the time that I'm recording this, yesterday or last night was a huge roller coaster of emotions. Obviously, the Broncos end up edging out a victory against the Buffalo Bills to move on to the AFC Championship game, 33-30. Their first trip to the AFC Championship since 2015, a whole decade. And by the way, that previous time that they went to the AFC Championship in 2015, they went to the Super Bowl and they won it, Super Bowl 50 in Santa Clara. That was Peyton Manning's last year. So there was a ton of excitement, especially we're going to talk a little bit more about the game a little bit later, but the game was fantastic. I mean, so many momentum swings, so up and down. The team played so well, in my opinion, did have some hiccups and whatnot. Like I said, we'll get to that in a minute, but it was just such it was an instant classic. It was a grueling physical matchup all game long. And you had, as a Broncos fan, you had a whole hour to just absorb it and feel it. And unfortunately, I think that all of us, including myself, took advantage of that feeling, because then an hour later, I get a report on my phone that, never before did I ever really believe that a report was fake, but I saw that it was by Adam Schefter. I saw ESPN and CBS Sports News begin to come out with it one after the other. Bo Nix with a fracture, a break in his ankle. Not to mention the fact that it happened on the third to last play of overtime. It was a designed run play for Bo Nix. Broncos fans have been chewing out Sean Payton, wanting Bo to be more involved within the run game and using his athleticism and his legs, because that is an important part of his game. And design run, not really sure why that play was realistically called. Not trying to be critical of Sean Payton, but they were trying to get a little bit closer into field goal range, and I felt like a run up the middle, which had been abandoned really the entire second half for the Broncos, would have been more optimal. But nonetheless, Bo rolls out to his left. He tries to avoid a safety, Bishop, coming in from behind, and does kind of what he does sometimes in terms of, gets low into kind of a squat position and tries to propel himself forward and jump forward to get some extra yardage. And this time, I believe it was the left foot, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. The left foot comes down first. You see a buckle, and then you see the safety wrap up. And Bo, got to give it to him. I don't know if it was just pure strength, pure adrenaline. He walks it off. He's able to kneel to throw a pass the very next play, actually. Forget the kneel. Throws a pass the very next play to Marvin Mims. There's a pass interference. He's able to kneel the ball, and you could see that even on the kneel, there was a little bit of shakiness trying to stand and whatnot, limps to the field. And even after that, gave a great post-game press interview, was all smiles, was happy, but then you get to hear the news a couple of hours later, and obviously it's super disappointing, especially for a guy that has been under a humongous spotlight for the media who has been so critical of him and his career and his play so far. He has probably the biggest game of his career, outplays the reigning MVP and Josh Allen, leads the Broncos to, once again, multiple game-winning or game-leading drives, and then this news. And it sucked the air out of you. It sucked the life out of you, to be honest. Even, this morning at the time that I was recording this, I was still a little bit down and thinking about it. My prayers and my thoughts obviously go out to Bo and his family, and we're hoping for a very speedy recovery and a safe surgery that he's going to be having on Tuesday. So my prayers go out to him. But unfortunately, the Broncos are not going to have him. And unfortunately, the Broncos, at the time that I'm recording this, now have a game in about 6 to 7 days that they still need to play. They still need to move forward. And they are obviously going to be moving forward with backup quarterback Jarrett Stidham. Now, this has probably been the most positive feedback that I think a backup quarterback has gotten in a very, very long time. I think that the mood from Broncos country has been pretty positive overall. And I think at this moment, there's a lot of backing and belief in Jarrett Stidham that he can do this. And to me, I say I have that same belief system as well. And I think to myself, why the heck not can Jarrett Stidham not be the guy? And in my opinion, there couldn't be much better of a situation for Jarrett Stidham to realistically succeed and win these next two games and lead the Broncos to a championship. I mean, just going off the top of my head here, number one, he's been in Sean Payton's system for a full 3 years, played 2 games at the end of the 2023 season, filling in for Russell Wilson in Sean Payton's system, was able to be pretty effective, scoring some touchdowns. I think he went 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and won them one of the 2 games that he played in. I could be wrong on that. Please fact check me down below in the comments. So he's been with Sean Payton for a very, very long time. You're going to have a Broncos offense that potentially is going to be 100% healthy. The Broncos are hoping that they are going to be getting J.K. Dobbins back from injury, which is a massive addition to what has been a struggling run game for the past couple of weeks. And especially now that you do have a backup quarterback, you are going to have to be a lot more unpredictable within the run game and getting significant yards to be able to play off of shorter passes and whatnot to make your offense a little bit more unpredictable. And Luke Wattenberg, starting center, is supposed to be back. Now, again, they still have to go through practice. They still have to go through the process of being cleared. Sean Payton and his coaching staff will obviously come to make that decision. So it's not a guarantee that that's going to happen. But Sean Payton has hinted at there's a likelihood that the offense will be 100% with those guys coming back. Really, the only guy that I believe you would be missing would be Pat Bryant, because I don't think that there's enough time, if he is going through the NFL concussion protocol, for him to come back for this week. But if you win this week, by the Super Bowl at least, this offense will be 100%. You're also playing at home at Mile High in Denver, Colorado. One of, if not the toughest home stadiums to play in, not just because of the loud fans who made it a nightmare for Josh Allen and his offense to communicate last night, but also because of the altitude, and especially the way that Denver has been playing this year, very physical, very defensive heavy, being able to drag out games. Towards the end of the game, you could see last night with the Buffalo Bills and a couple of weeks back with the Green Bay Packers, and Sean Payton mentioned this, they looked pretty tired, and they looked like the altitude was really, really getting to them, especially James Cook, who was getting tons of carries all game long. So you have home field advantage. You have a coach that you're very familiar with. You have an offense that is going to be pretty much ready to go, locked and loaded. And now, at the time that I'm recording this, you are now playing the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game, which was Jarrett Stidham's first team that he was drafted by, and is obviously a program and an organization that he is very, very familiar with. So there are plenty of factors in this to where Jarrett Stidham can be very effective. Not to mention, Jarrett Stidham is not a bum quarterback in this league. Yes, he's a backup, and there's going to be a huge label that is attached to that, but he's probably one of the best backups in the league, and that's not an exaggeration whatsoever. I think only a guy like Malik Willis I would potentially rank above a Jarrett Stidham, and that basically comes down to Malik's athleticism and his ability to use his legs. Stidham, he has some really solid accuracy to go ahead and throw. He can still use his arm to extend plays down the field. And while he does tend to, be quite even, at least he has been in his NFL career with touchdowns and interceptions, he has shown ability to be able to move the ball down the field and being able to put his offense in scoring drives. He looked great in the preseason this year. And even Sean Payton talked about during the preseason that he feels that Jarrett Stidham could have started for other teams within the NFL and that he feels like his number two is a number one in other places. So Stidham is not necessarily, somebody that you should take lightly. I mean, a four-star recruit coming out of high school, commits to Auburn in 2017 after playing at Baylor and getting a little bit of limited time, at least starting at Baylor. Then 2 years at Auburn, plays 27 games, goes 36-11 with over 5,000 passing yards, and has a 18-9 record. I mean, was insane. Was the quarterback before Bo Nix got to Auburn, which is kind of interesting, and then goes to New England, kind of gets lost in the sauce a little bit because he was supposed to be the protege to Tom Brady. Then they signed, Cam Newton and Brian Hoyer, and they wanted to mix him in. Then goes with his offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, to the Las Vegas Raiders. Has a game where he starts his first NFL start where he throws for 365 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yes, 2 interceptions, but 3 touchdowns and 365 yards in an overtime loss to the 49ers. Then obviously comes to Denver, and we know all of the history there. Like, Jarrett Stidham is a really solid player. And if we're being honest right now, he doesn't have to do a lot. I mean, seriously, he does not have to do a lot, especially against New England and the way that New England played today. I don't think that the score really reflects really how that game went. New England struggled with turnovers today. Drake May, overall, this whole season, has struggled with holding on to the ball and keeping the ball in the Patriots offense's hands. They've struggled with that all year long. This is not the interior offensive line or at least the physicality and the size of interior offensive line that a team like Buffalo has. So I think that the Denver defense is going to have a little bit easier time of dealing with that run game, that 1-2 punch of Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson. The secondary is going to be what it is, and they made big time plays all game long. Yesterday against the Buffalo Bills. Like, Jarrett just needs to be solid. Like, he just needs to be able to put possessions together. And especially, like I said, an offense that is going to be 100%, you're going to have weapons in place that are going to be able to make the plays for you. Marvin Mims was exceptional yesterday, especially as a deep threat going down the field. Courtland Sutton is a tall physical presence that on any given play you could realistically throw the ball up to, and he's going to have an opportunity to catch it. Like you said, if you have J.K. Dobbins or if you're not, R.J. Harvey, 12 touchdowns, leading all rookies this year. He's been dynamic in both the running and passing game. And then getting J.K. Dobbins potentially back within that run game as a thumper could be important. Evan Ingram, somebody who still has not been 100% fully utilized with the Denver Broncos, who can serve as a tight end, wide receiver, hybrid type threat. Like, one of the best offensive lines in the league. Like, Jarrett does not have to be Bo Nix. He does not have to go out and throw for 300 plus yards, 2 to 3 touchdowns a game for them to be able to be successful. Honestly, if he could put together a game of 200 yards, a tutty, and no mistakes, the Denver Broncos will likely beat the Patriots next Sunday and potentially even who their NFC counterpart is going to be within the Super Bowl. That's how solid this defense is. That's the plays that this defense is making at this point. And that's the very, very underrated talent that the Denver Broncos have on that offensive side that could allow Jarrett Stidham to realistically, utilize the talents that he has, which is not similar to Bo Nix in a way that he doesn't have the same athleticism and ability to run with his legs, but the accuracy is there, the throw power is there and whatnot. Like, Stidham has all the tools in his bag to be able to do this. And when you hear him talk in interviews, when you heard Sean Payton after he announced the Bo Nix injury, he said, Stiddy is ready. He is ready for this moment. And Stidham said at the beginning of the season that he feels like he is in a position to be able to go out and starting for other teams. Like, this is a guy that has confidence, that knows the ability that he has. He's not going to be timid within these moments. I'm telling you, I know that there's going to be a label to it being a backup quarterback, and a lot of people thinking that this is just going to be the worst offense in the league now. But Stidham has underrated ability. He's one of the better backups in the league. He has the talent around him to be able to make plays and bail him out, even if he's not making plays, especially on that defensive end. Jarrett Stidham, the Broncos are not out of this. Even with Jarrett Stidham in, they still have a really, really solid chance at this. And if they beat New England, the way that New England played against the Texans defense today, despite the mistakes that they made, if they could beat that team, I don't know if either the Rams or the Seahawks could realistically beat them in the Super Bowl, especially when you consider the fact that I think the Bills are probably one of the toughest challenges that you could have in these playoffs this year. And the Broncos went ahead and they beat them yesterday. And speaking about yesterday, let's talk a little bit about it and what the heck happened yesterday, because there's been a lot of talk. And I don't know. I thought to take a step back for a second. I guess I thought that after the Broncos won yesterday in what was an impressive victory against the reigning MVP, somebody who everybody was picking to win this game, who everybody believed was going to the Super Bowl to win it. We love you, Josh, and I'm sorry that we were the ones that had to beat you. I thought that the Denver Broncos were finally going to get some dang credit. I did not think that I was going to hear any hate about this game whatsoever from not even just Bills fans, but from NFL fans, from the NFL community. And I don't know why I thought about that. Because immediately after this game, there was a whole bunch of excuses, a whole bunch of calls from NFL fans. And look, to even take it another step back, I was talking about this with a friend the other day. I don't understand why the Broncos are so hated. Like, I really don't understand what the hate about us is. It's not like, speaking as a Denver Broncos fan, as a guy who has, gone to games pretty much my whole childhood, like, we don't have like a toxic, outrageous fan base. Like, we don't have players on our squad who are shit talkers and who are, pissing people off and whatnot. Like, I'm not saying that the team is perfect, but I'm just saying, like, I don't understand why our team is realistically so hated. Maybe it's because 2 years ago we were bad and now we've seemingly turned around and people are just confused. I don't know, man. It is the weirdest thing to see. But going back to yesterday's game and how it went, like I said, it was a massive, massive roller coaster of emotions. So let's start on the offensive side. Then we'll move to the defense, and then we'll move on to some of the things that people in the community are saying. And I'll probably end this off with a little bit of a rant to the NFL community, so I do apologize. But offensively, I loved how the Broncos came out and started. They started fast, and that was a big thing that I was really, really worried about, especially coming off of a 1 week bye. Especially the fact that this Broncos offense has not started fast pretty much all season. I thought that it was going to be a really slow start, and I was expecting them to be playing from behind pretty significantly from the beginning. But they came out swinging and should have had a touchdown on that first drive if it wasn't for Jordan Humphrey dropping that ball in the end zone. But they were still out there and were able to get a field goal, which was a great thing because I don't think that this Denver Broncos defense really knew what was coming at them, at least within that first quarter and even parts of the second, because you got to give credit to the Bills. I mean, despite facing the number 2 rushing defense in the league, they're the number 1 rushing offense in the league, and they played to that strength. They played to the strength of just having the physicality and size against Denver on the line. And that was the biggest concern for me going into this game, was how Denver would look in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And especially in that first half, man, they just got ragdolled. I mean, they were getting thrown around. James Cook was running wherever and however he wanted on the Denver Broncos. It was bad. And luckily for the Denver defense, despite the slow play, the offense was still able to pick up the slack. I think Bo threw a touchdown in that second quarter. And then, big time for the Broncos defense, especially at the end of that first half. Nick Bonito is able to strip away a fumble. Alex Singleton, a couple of drives earlier, was able to force a fumble on James Cook. Those two were massive, massive momentum changes, both that I believe ended in scores for Denver, and especially that field goal at the end of the half. I think Denver goes into the half up 20-10. And I'm over here as a Denver Broncos fan saying, dang, like, we might have this. Like, this might be the time. Like, I was really worried going into this game. I'm thinking to myself, like, we might just pull this out. And it gets even better when the first play of the second half, Nick Bonito comes out and gets another strip sack on Josh Allen, which turns into another field goal for the Denver Broncos. Another huge momentum changer. But then after that, the Bills just took control. Josh Allen put on that Superman cape like he always does. He threw 3 touchdowns on the game, 283 yards, but also made some mistakes. We talked about the 2 fumbles from him, the third fumble coming from James Cook. He also threw 2 big-time interceptions, one of them being immediately after Bo Nix threw an interception to a defensive lineman. Josh Allen comes back on the other end and throws a deep interception back to P.J. Locke. Shout out to P.J. Really, really happy to see him go ahead and get that pick because me personally, I wasn't a big believer of him potentially replacing Brandon Jones just because I don't believe that he is as great in coverage as Brandon is, and I felt that he would struggle. Him getting that pick, it was really, really great to see, and again, was another big-time stop for Denver. But, even through there, leading into it, they gave up a field goal that tied it up going into OT. Back and forth, Denver gets a possession, the Bills get a possession, they get an interception, Broncos get the ball back, they're able to kick a field goal for the win. And here is where I want to backtrack and take a look at the controversial calls that came out of this game. And the reason why I say controversial is because ultimately, I don't think that there were any controversial calls in this game. And anybody who says that, I'm sorry, but you just don't understand the rules of football, or you're just hating. There's no other 2 ways to really say it, guys. I'm sorry. And I hate to be, negative Nelly and trying to call out people and whatnot. That's not what I'm here to do. But none of these calls that people are discussing were controversial. So the first call was the Jaquan McMillan interception. It came on Buffalo's overtime drive, only overtime drive of the game, the second drive of overtime. Buffalo was driving. They were within striking distance of getting into field goal range. Josh Allen, for some reason, took a shot downfield to Brandon Cooks to try and, at least get closer, even potentially score a touchdown. Brandon Cooks catches the ball, has a step on Jaquan McMillan, momentarily catches the ball. Jaquan, and I'm going to try to explain this as best as I can, Jaquan, in his effort to catch up, ends up entangling his arms with Cooks, and as they're going to the ground, Cooks loses possession of the ball. It ends up in Jaquan McMillan's hands. It's ruled an interception. Now, the one thing I will say, and that I will agree with, is I did not like that this play was kind of swept under the rug by the officials. I believe it was an interception. I know it was an interception, in fact. But to not have a instant replay or full-on review for it, to what it sounds like from Sean McDermott in his post-game press conference, to not answer any of his questions and giving him a definitive description of what they believed happened, I don't agree with that. I think that they should have been more thorough with this, especially with it was the play of the game. Like it was the play that won Denver the game 100%. As much as I don't like Jaquan McMillan, and he's grown on me a little bit because he's been making some plays, and he definitely has gotten better. And it was a great play by him. Congratulations to you, Jaquan. You made an amazing play. But I felt that play should have been looked at more. Even though I agree with the call, I don't like how we just immediately went into the next drive and didn't even bat an eye. That being said, it was an interception. Shannon Sharp explained it pretty much on the nose yesterday after the game. So I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can. And if you don't like my explanation, go ahead and look it up. I'm sure it's on YouTube and very easy to find. I was able to find it as well. Shannon says that there is something, and this is true, called the Calvin Johnson rule in football, which basically means, in short terms, that a catch cannot officially be ruled a catch unless the receiver retains possession of the ball through the end of the play. That being, if it's a toe tap catch in the back of the end zone, or whether that means that somebody's being tackled in midfield, it can only be ruled a catch if the receiver retains possession through the end of the play. If the receiver does not retain that possession, the ball is live, or unless it hits the ground or whatnot, is presumed the play is dead at that point. And go back and look at that play. You can look at any angle that you want. I'll talk you through it again. Josh Allen throws it. Cooks catches it originally. Jaquan, trying to recover, puts his hands and tangles up with Cooks, wanting to also take him to the ground. At that moment, it is still not a valid catch because Cooks, it's not the end of the play yet. The ball is still live. Cooks has not gone to the ground and has been tackled. He hasn't even taken the adequate amount of steps that would be ruled for a catch if it was that type of situation. As Jaquan takes him down, and you can see this on many different angles, and if you zoom in on it, Cooks loses possession of the ball. His left hand, in fact, kind of turns, and his backhand is on the ball instead of his palm anymore. He turns like this, and the ball begins to bobble a little bit. And then as they begin to turn over, the ball, now bobbling, it's still live at this point. It's not a catch. It is live for anybody to grab. Transfers into Jaquan's hands as he rips it away and then does a rollover and grabs it. Had Cooks secured it and gone to the ground and then Jaquan had ripped it, it would have been a catch because Cooks would have been the first person to possess and have control of the ball. But seeing as he never had control of the ball and it bobbled around and transferred into Jaquan's hands, it's an interception. That's call one. Call two, the pass interference on Courtland Sutton later on in Denver's game-winning overtime drive. While I agree that it was a little bit 50-50, a little bit ticky-tacky, some hand fighting, I will say this, two things. Number one, the refs missed a pass interference previously, I think it was the previous play actually, on the Jordan Humphrey that was virtually the same as the Courtland Sutton one. So they missed out on a pass interference there. Not consistent. Number two, it doesn't even matter if it was pass interference on Courtland Sutton or not, because Joey Bosa, 5 seconds after Bo Nix had already thrown the ball, decided to bump Bo Nix and throw him on the ground and got called for roughing the passer. So while I believe that it's a 50-50 call and it was one that leaned Denver's way, even if it didn't, Denver still gets 15 yards on that play from the Joey Bosa roughing the passer. So that call doesn't really matter. It's not controversial because either way, Denver is getting the yards. And the final one, that being pass interference on Marvin Mims, in what world is that not pass interference? Tre'Davious White is tackling him, taking out his legs before Mims even has his hands up on that play. It's not controversial. It's just a bad play by Tre'Davious White all around. And you know, people out here saying, you know, the Broncos paid the refs and the refs versus the Bills and whatnot, but they don't talk about the fact that Joey Bosa had the rough in the passer. They don't talk about the fact that Tre'Davious White had that PI and then after got an unsportsmanlike conduct fight for yelling at the ref and throwing his helmet on the ground, which gave Denver extra yards to get closer within field goal range. They don't talk about how the Bills had 5 total turnovers, how Josh Allen had 2 total interceptions and then 2 fumbles surrounding that. They don't talk about the fact that Josh Allen had an opportunity in overtime to win that game. Didn't even need to throw that deep pass to Brandon Cooks. Could have played it more conservatively because they were already within striking distance to get a field goal. People don't discuss none of that. They don't discuss Bo Nix and the game that he had. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 26 for 46, almost 300 yards. They don't talk about the fact, you want to talk about controversial and missed calls, the fact that the Denver Broncos defensive line, spitting everywhere, I apologize, was being held by the Bills offensive line all game long. The most notable being on the Bills' overtime drive where DJ Jones is in pursuit of Josh Allen, is about to sack him for a safety that would have won the game, and half his body is like this because he's being held by a Bills offensive lineman, and that was never called. Nick Bonito was getting held on constantly. There were a couple of face masks in there. Zach Allen was being held on to. Malcolm Roach was. Jonathan Cooper was being held on to a lot by Deion Dawkins. Talanoa Hufanga got held on to that wasn't called coming off of the edge. There were numerous times for the refs to go ahead and call holding, and they never did. So even if that, excuse me if we didn't get the Riley Moss pass interference not called on us, because the refs have missed plenty of penalties all game long. Not to mention the fact that Denver had more penalties than the Bills in this game. They had 5 to the Bills 3. What else is there to say? People don't even talk about the Broncos starting punter, Jeremy Crenshaw, who had a monster boot of a punt after that first overtime drive and was able to nail the Bills inside the 5. Nobody talks about that. Like, it's a frustration in me as a football fan because of how the community looks at things. And yes, not everybody's going to look at things the same way. I'm not asking for you guys to agree with me on every single thing because it's not going to happen. We all have opinions. Sports are up for debate, up for opinion. That's why we have this podcast in the first place. But to have this instant classic, this amazing game that just took place in front of our eyes, and for a majority of social media to be on the Bills got robbed, the Broncos paid them off, it was the rest versus the Bills. Even after that, saying that it was karma for the Denver Broncos that Bo Nix broke his ankle, point out these theories that Bo Nix doesn't even have a broken ankle. I saw a theory today where people thought that he broke it after celebrating or something, and that they were talking about how he went in this black van in the back of the stadium. They took him off. Like, give me a break, guys. Can we please just have some damn heart and sympathy for a guy who just had the best game of his life, who had, an amazing second year of his NFL career, is only the second quarterback of all time behind Patrick Mahomes to take his team to the AFC Championship game, or just the championship game in general, in just his second year. Can we please have sympathy for that young guy instead of going out here and trashing him and doubting his injury? Heck, even making jokes. There was another analyst that I saw on TikTok today still calling Bo Nix the 40-year-old and all that, when the dude had a broken ankle and still was able to go out and make a winning play to Marvin Mims throwing it down the field. Outplayed the reigning MVP in Josh Allen. What are we doing, guys? We need to relax and learn to enjoy these games a little bit more instead of just going into conspiracy theory and nonsense. It's ridiculous. Seriously, I'm not joking around here. It's frustrating, especially somebody who, as a fan is finally beginning to win after, 8-9 years of just consistent losing. It really, really sucks to hear all of this. So that's my thoughts on all that. So the final thoughts here for Denver going into next Sunday against the New England Patriots. Overall, the offense is going to have to be better in terms of the run game. Bo Nix was the leading runner against the Bills in this game. They only had 70 total yards rushing. They only ran the ball with their 2 running backs 10 times. And in the second half, it was pretty much non-existent. It was all quarterback design runs. They need to do better in the run game. They need to run the ball a lot more. And hopefully with J.K. Dobbins coming back, they can. I think that the defense will be more prepared for the running game and will be more equipped to face off against that running game. Drake May is young, can still make some mistakes, was making some mistakes today against a tough Texans defense. Overall, it's still a 50-50 game in my eyes because you do have Jarrett Stidham still starting. But again, if Stidham can play steady, if Stiddy can stay steady, the Broncos still have a chance at winning the Lombardi trophy. Let me know what you think about all of that down below in the comment section, as well as leaving a like on the video, sharing the video with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. We are on the road to 200 total subscribers. So if you could please help out, it would be greatly appreciated. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those ads are going to be down below. We're on all of those social medias. You'll get to see my latest reactions to breaking news from the NBA, the NFL, and combat sports. And you will never miss whenever the podcast decides to upload an episode. Without further ado, guys, that's all that I have for you guys today. I will see you guys on the next one. Have a great start to your week, and peace.